Section 7.5, Database Security. There's a table that's accessible within the Security tab called Database Security. This is where there are objects that are, well, larger than the objects we've dealt with before, the entire database for certain classes of objects. For example, the PyPoint database is the entire collection of all the points on the Pi system. We've dealt so far with individual points. Well, this is the construct that represents all the points together. Just like similarly, when you look at Pi user, that reflects all the Pi users, or it represents all the users in the system. Now, just like individual points, the PyPoint database itself has an owner. It has a group that's associated with that database, and then there's certain permissions. As you can see here, the only permission, or the only entity that has permission to create things in the PyPoint database is the owner right now. He has read-write access. The owner is PyAdmin. Again, there is a group called PyAdmin, but actually, in fact, that group has no more permissions than the rest of the world. It only has read access. So let's see how this happens, or let's see what this means for one of the users we created in an earlier exercise. So let's take a look at this this environment here. Right now, I'm actually connected to a different server than we've looked at before. This is my client computer, the computer that I'm working on, but this is the Pi server. In fact, it's actually a virtual machine, but it's a Pi server that's in all senses of the word. So it's a separate computer, and I need to remotely get access to it. So I have users on that computer, like Sid and Sam, those users we created earlier. And as you can see, Sid, well, he has no special permissions. He belongs to the same groups that we set up in the previous exercise. But as I mentioned, since he is not PyAdmin, since he doesn't own this, he should not be able to create Pi tags. And in fact, you can prove this if you go into the point builder and create a brand new tag. Let's call this myTest4, for example. When I try to save, if I'm currently logged in as the user called Sid, it's going to fail. So let me demonstrate. I'll go into File, Connections. I'm currently logged in as PyAdmin, who is a privileged user, but I'll just do a right click and choose Connect As, and I'm going to connect as my user called Sid. If I refresh this, you can see I'm now logged in as Sid. So watch what happens when I try to save this. We'll look at the message box down at the bottom. Yeah, if you take a look at the bottom here, we can see we get the famous -1041 error, no write access. So basically, even though this user, Sid, he was a privileged user who does have edit permission for certain tags, he cannot in fact create new tags, and the reason for that is because he does not have the right permissions in PyPoint. So there's certain things about this database security table that we'll discuss in more detail later, but basically the importance of the database tables is it allows administrators to grant specific groups to have access to certain tables. It's through the database table that we would give people access to create tags, create digital states, users, modules, etc. So let's start by demonstrating what we would do for the user Sid. I'm going to switch over to the System Management Tools, and I think the way I'd like to do this is first I would like to build a brand new group in which we'll just call this group My Point Builders. It's all the people who have permission to build points. I'd rather do that than stick with PyAdmin. I'd like to stick that to just purely administrative tools for that particular group. Anyway, so I'll create this group called My Point Builders. Now, an interesting thing happens, and I think you should be aware of it. See, I'm still logged in as Sid. On this current version, see, Sid doesn't have permission to build groups, and if I were to try to create this, you'd get a pretty ugly error message, but you can continue as you work with it. See, if I try to create this, I get an unhandled error. Obviously, that's a mistake. We should have handled that a little more gracefully. But in any case, the reason that's happening, and that may happen to you back home with this particular version, is because I'm not privileged to add that group. So what I'd like to do, let me go into Connections. Let me connect as PyAdmin, who has more permissions to create this. I'll go ahead and create a new group called My my point builders. There we go. There's my point builders. Again, didn't want to scare anybody with that. Just wanted to let you know that's something in this current release. That's version 3.2.0.0. You will see that if you try to create an object that you don't have permission to create, at least with regard to the groups. Yeah, that's a good example of sometimes the testing. We certainly don't ship something if we know it's got a bug in it, but sometimes there's slip through. So anyway, if that happens to you, please give us a call and we'll show you the upgrade path to fix that. In any case, what I just did is I just built a new group called My Point Builders. I'm going to go ahead and add Sid to that group, or give Sid membership in that group. So I'll go into Group Membership. I will add his membership in My Point Builders. Again, that really doesn't accomplish anything. It just makes Sid a little bit special. He now belongs to one more group. The real big finish here is to go into Database Security, go into PyPoint, and let us make the group associated with this PyPoint database. Let's make it My Point Builders. Again, still, that does not accomplish the job. I still have to specify read-write permission for members of the group. So by setting read-write permission there, that should allow me to build points with the PyPoint database, or with the PyPoint builder. So let me now log in one more time as Sid. I'll connect as Sid again. And I'm not sure if I'm going to have to stop and restart to get these changes. I think these changes take place immediately. So now I'm logged in as Sid. Let's see if in fact I will be able to create this tag. Let's call this My Test 6. I'll choose Save. And there we go. See, now Sid was properly able to create that. I am logged in as Sid, and since Sid is a member of My Point Builders has read-write access to that table. I'm able to create PyPoints. Now, if you only have read access to these Pi databases, there are actually certain privileges you do get. For example, if you need to edit existing points, if you have the proper point access security, then you will be able to edit those points. Let me demonstrate. Do you remember our user called Sam? I'm currently logged in as the user Sam, and if let's just verify that. You see, I'm logged in as the user Sam. And if we take a look at his permissions, Sam, he is a member of ENI Lab and Soup. As members of the supervisors group, if we look at this particular tag, this is that special secret tag that we wanted nobody to have access except the supervisors. Yes, if you notice, world has no access. The supervisors are both the controllers of the data and the point definition. They're the group associated with the point access, and that group has read-write access. Well, there's one interesting point about all this. Sam, as a member of the supervisors group, he does not, as you can see, he is not a member of My Point Builders, and he's not the owner, PyAdmin. So how is it that he can actually make these edits? Because he in fact can edit this. If I change this to 110, let me go ahead and save this. Yes, as you can see, I was able to successfully edit that. How can Sam edit this? Well, it's that exception to the rule. I shouldn't say exception to the rule, but it's that slightly non-intuitive behavior, which is that if you have read access to that database, as long as you have the proper point access, you can in fact edit tags. You can't create new tags, but you can edit existing tags, as long as all the other settings are proper for you being a member of a group that has the right point access. Another thing about these databases, you will notice that you can change the password only of the user you're currently logged in as. So even if you're PyAdmin, you'll notice that you can only change your own password when you're when logged in. Now, with PyAdmin, you can provide a change to a password that a user has forgotten by using that exclamation mark. But simply put, if you're logged in as a user and you know another user's password, you can't change his password. You have to be logged in as that user.